All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 2, Episode 13.
All right, last episode. We had
wonderful.
some really good stuff with our great teacher.
That's right. Yes, and it was sweet. It was awesome. There was that little bit of, like, scary drama stuff because, you know, Akito did have his effect on, what's her name? Yeah, but...
we also had some really cool stuff clarified by the community that... Hattori's hypnosis is like hypnosis, like it's actually just like, you know, like actual hypnosis, like it's not some kind of crazy power or what have you. Yeah. So basically like we've been like way tunneling on the idea that it's just like it's a power or what have you. But like looking up hypnosis and what have you,
that's actually like a thing.
That's actually a thing.
Oh,
that's
okay.
That's just a thing.
So I guess Hana just is that special. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, cool. We're moving towards the wholesomeness side of things.
We are indeed
towards the cute and the wonderful. And since the beach arc is over, people are going to be going back to school. People are going to be going back to their normal lives, and we might get to see just the lovable shenanigans that you know we've enjoyed for so much in Fruits Basket when things don't involve a certain head of
and I would. It's clan, not family.
Clan, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I would love it if we just got an entire episode that was wholesome slice of life stuff. We have been going through all the side characters and even giving like character arc resolutions, even though we're just halfway through the second season, which I'm all for. But then like maybe we could get more of that with like some of the other side characters. You know, I wouldn't mind that.
I would love that.
Yeah.
So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Oh, whoa, chaotic episode that just went super deep right near the last third of it.
Yeah, it did. And I really like the way they ended up taking it. I was actually kind of surprised by it because I was a bit too busy being bugged to shit by Kakeru.
Yeah.
That I was just like, oh my god, yes, please, Yuki, tell him how awful he is being. But then, oh wait, no. Why did that get under Yuki's skin so much? Huh.
Yeah, I think
that's a good question.
This is genius because a lot of stories will just stay at the surface level for this kind of stuff. But because this whole narrative is framed around the idea of everyone coming to an element of understanding and primarily acceptance of the self, both of those things, understanding of the self and acceptance of the self, Yuki is the main character, I would say, in regards to this self-actualization, in that he is the most, I would say, dissonant from who he truly is based on his trauma. So having this be a focal point where there's all this noise and chaos just coming at him from the environment, basically saying, we're going to whittle away your defenses and exhaust you unless you kind of end up getting, like, well, kind of caught up in the flow of this. Because a lot of what makes these types of characters or people...
last?
Well, no. Okay,
yeah.
I don't think you know what I'm going to say. Actually, somewhat engaging for the relationship side of things. The idea that the only person that really seems to be having like a really good time at the student council is Manabe. Like everybody else is just dealing with their own shit in their own way there.
Maybe Kimi is, you know, not having the worst time.
But she's putting on the hardest fakery of it all.
Right.
So in some ways, I would say no, she's actually like putting in tons of energy to put on this thing here that's super cutesy and manipulative.
The reason why I would say that's a different one, though, is because she has accepted the fact that that's something that she's doing. Like I feel like...
Well, to everybody or to just the people that she's able to win it off on? Because that was only done to the 3 girls that she was winning against in the battle. She didn't do that to anybody else.
So I guess maybe this gets in, and I don't want to get into some like conversation about something else that's not necessarily related to the episode, but I feel like given that Yuki has this whole situation with needing to figure out who he is and everything and be true to himself, given that he's used a persona as like a facade in a shield basically to keep himself from connecting with people, and now he does want to connect with people, so he needs to be able to drop that. And also get a good look at himself and also at the people around him, like not be completely self-focused and all of this stuff. I feel like in a weird way, Kimi is maybe an example of Yuki fully actualized in a weird way.
No, I think she's the unhealthy version of Yuki.
Possibly, or okay. It's an unhealthy version of Yuki, but the thing is that him using the personas and stuff doesn't have to be something that is wholly bad, right?
No, of course not.
The problem is that he's using it as a crutch, or has used it as a crutch, and he doesn't know if he's actually comfortable not using it and being real, and so he needs that practice, right?
Right.
And then he ends up getting it here because they're so chaotic and
right. So until he actually knows who she is, on the surface, she's kind of a unhealthy version of Yuki. I think it's a bit of a speculative thing to get into, like, actually whether or not her true nature is that different.
Sure, and only thing she wasn't the focus of this episode anyway, so it's not really, like, there's not too much point talking about it in depth.
Yeah, they're probably going to focus on her later. But the idea that Kakeru, or Manabe, is the one that gets the focus here because he's the one that actually is the leader, regardless of how the dynamic works within the student council outside of Yuki being there, because there was definitely some fighting or some issues that were going on with Machi and Kakeru. There's something charismatic about this guy, even though he's an idiot, that he can basically broadcast his stupidity out to the point where everyone kind of gets into the jive with him. Now, it's different because Yuki's there, so there's different people to please, especially from the Kimi situation.
Right.
But the idea that our boy has been comparing himself to everybody that is even like remotely close to him makes so much sense given the interaction that he had with his brother in his shop that one time.
Yep.
And now here he has a character who kind of forces out of him his true self. The person who's frustrated, who's tired, who's exasperated, and just wants to basically have something genuine. And There you go. You might just get it now. I love that.
That's interesting because and maybe it's just because this particular type of character really rubs me the wrong way in Kakeru. So it could totally be something where I am having trouble seeing him like through a clear lens.
Yeah, pull your perspective, like Yuki, like the other guy was saying, like pull your perspective out and try and shift into the idea that this guy and Yuki are going to connect on some level.
Well,
but like, what's the mechanisms that would need to be in place in order to make that work?
Okay. So, yes, of course they're going to connect, and that's already started to happen. Right. I can definitely acknowledge that is happening. It's more of a thing of who knows if some of you might not agree on this regard, but I see him as a bully.
He is a bully.
Yeah.
He was being a bully. Yeah,
totally a bully. And the thing is that it's something where he's kind of getting away with it because he has the natural charisma, right? Like none of his behavior, because he's not the focus of the show, none of his behavior really needs to be called out because Yuki starts to call it out, but then he realizes, wait, what's more important? Me calling out this behavior, which he might be totally right to call out, or realizing that, oh shit, that's right, it is because it's happening in this way because of a situation that I need to work on in myself. And what's more important, that I worry about what he's doing, or that I worry about me and how I'm growing and making sure I'm taking care of.
Yeah, but that was the whole point. That was the whole point of him then making sure that he went and apologized to Kyo and the buddies there, and then he obviously went and did the plant seedlings and stuff, even though they didn't show it. That was very much you can complain, but that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, well, that was
showing that he had essentially submitted to Yuki's leadership in that regard. Because in the episode way a while ago in season 2, where he's like, I would like it actually if you were a little bit more straight with me, if you were a little bit more direct, that was a big deal. Yuki did that here. So in some ways, he earned the respect of him, where he's like, okay, cool. And Yuki is the kind of person that would put a stamp on the like, hey, we need to be sensitive to other people's feelings because that's one of the things that Yuki has a strength of. He does understand people's feelings a lot.
Right.
He's sometimes a bit off, and then he doesn't realize that he's off.
Yeah, he gets his own his, you know, like anybody, his own emotional state will basically color how he sees other people, right?
For sure.
And so, you know, even if, like, in the case where he blew up at Manabe, he wasn't technically wrong, right?
No.
It was just a thing of, oh, yes, he was absolutely being, like, judgmental and doing comparisons there.
In just that instance, though.
But yeah, he, like...
Didn't do it for the rest of the episode.
Let's be real. This guy is too lazy and too self-obsessed to really compare.
He's way not thinking enough to even actually make comparisons.
Yeah. And so really, you know, it's that you see yourself in that, and that is specifically the thing that you're trying to work on, right? Because you get in such a no-win scenario when you do that for a variety of reasons, not just because comparisons in general are bad and aren't going to help. And he even, you know, mentioned that as soon as the comparison game would start, he would then go, like, his esteem would drop through the floor. But two, because of the ways that basically Yuki isn't able to, he's so in his own situation that he can't even get a clear look at himself, right?
Yeah,
because
or others.
Right. Yeah, if he can't get a clear look at himself, how is he going to be able to get a clear look at others, right? That then it's like even within the comparison game that is already a mistake to be trying to do, he loses at that, right? Because he doesn't give himself any credit, things like that. He can look at Kyo and be like, wow, Kyo is so lucky. He's so, like, people just flock to him. Well, no, it's more that Toru is flocking to him. Kyo is really, like, standoffish for most people, and you're actually the one that gets the luck with the people that you don't care about, but for the person that you do care about.
To be fair, this episode started with Kyo having an adorable interaction with Uo.
That's true.
I want to bring up the idea here that actually, I think you're wrong here. Kyo actually does have decent amounts of friends at the school here. He is not charismatic, though. That's the point. You don't need to be charismatic
in order to have friends.
Right. You need to be genuine.
Right, and Yuki. That's the thing that Kyo has a much easier time of than Yuki.
Right.
And
recently, especially.
And that's then, of course, what Yuki is jealous of, right? And so then it makes it especially interesting then with the Manabe guy. For him to be like, you're lucky, right? Now, of course, that's also his own limited perspective, right?
But he said it believing it with 100% sincerity.
Right, 100% believing it. Now, it could be just that, you know, he doesn't know Yuki's situation, right? He doesn't know Yuki's internals in the same way that Yuki doesn't know, like, Kyo's internals entirely, right?
Man.
But he genuinely, truly believed that. This guy who, that's probably one of the few times we've actually seen him be
conscientious.
Well, conscientious and sincere in his conscientiousness.
Okay. Do you want to
maybe just conscientious at all?
Well, right? That's my point. Actually, is that Yuki is conscientiousness on the extreme on the other side.
Right.
This guy has no conscientiousness.
Nope, none.
So the idea that he broke character and showed his true self and talked with Yuki directly about all this means that actually he does have some. It's just so buried underneath this desire to be the boisterous cool guy, you know? That he's like, yeah, I'm the cool guy. That he actually comes off as super uncool to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny.
And he might not actually have too many real friends. That's why he's attaching so hard to Kyo, is that he's actually like, oh shit, I might actually get a real friend out of this here. So he's doing all of the connection things he knows badly to try and connect with him. Yuki is not actually connecting with him. Well, he hasn't been until now.
Was he wanting to connect with Kyo or Yuki?
Sorry, with Yuki.
Okay, gotcha.
Obviously not. He hasn't even met Kyo, really.
Right.
But the thing that was really cool about this is that his thing that he was doing with you, Yuki, was comparing. He said, you're lucky.
Yeah.
He compared you and him. And the basis upon which he said that earlier was that you understand people. Hey, where should I stand in order to see things from their perspective.
Right. I feel like it's something where maybe this guy is it. The Power Rangers thing kind of gave me a Chuny vibe, but I feel like there's potentially a pseudo kind of Chuny vibe that could be gotten at separate from the Power Rangers thing, in that if he feels so incapable of basically seeing things from other people's perspective, right?
Okay.
Then it almost feels like what he's trying to do is take something so extreme that he can basically put out into the social conversation that basically demands that people kind of align themselves with
or
it a
respond.
bit. Yeah, respond in some way.
Yeah.
And then that's the way that he can kind of like connect without really connecting, because he's making it be something where they have to, like, even if he can't see things from their perspective, if they're going to interact with this thing that he throws out there, then that means he has some sense of where they are, right?
Yeah. I think it's a toxic form of trying to understand people without being vulnerable. There's an aspect of people that are what I would call it's a form of like almost manic, like not ADHD, because it's not necessarily a medical condition, but like it's some form of manic depressive, like I don't even know how to describe it, but some form of like obsession with being the
center of attention, or
being observed, being seen, or something.
Because
I was just gonna say that basically when he got really mad with Yuki, he kicked the things out, but he basically was like, hey, what the hell, shut up. Not saying that he's wrong or what have you, but he compared him to his mother. And then he said later, like, when you said that,
you sounded just like
her. Now, her doesn't have to mean his mother.
Right.
I think it works that it also is the one that you were thinking of,
the
which
girl
is
in Machi, yeah.
But it could be both, and that's the idea that her might be a translation of, I don't want to tell you that it's Machi, but the audience will now know that it's Machi. But to you, Yuki, you sounded like my mother. And in a lot of ways...
And he might have even told Machi that when she said the same thing. You know?
Sure. And that's the kind of thing where I go, oh shit, the guy was exposed here for a second. Meaning like something had a light shown on it that he really didn't like.
Right. It's the kind of thing where because he doesn't have a perspective, he can't see things from other people's perspective.
Yeah.
He does something that is Yuki basically kind of responded in kind.
Yes.
In that he basically poked at Yuki in a very direct...
but blasé kind of way. That's where it's different, is that Yuki came at him way stronger.
Sure. There was
stronger.
Right. There was a lot more... Yeah, he was intentionally poking, but because he doesn't understand the other people's perspective...
Yeah, there's no maliciousness to it.
He can't truly know how to the point it is.
Yeah.
Whereas with Yuki, then he's like, okay, cool, I'll be just as to the point with you, but I know that that's what it is.
Right, but I'm going to have all this bite to it because I know this is going to potentially hurt you, which is funny because then he ends up revealing his vulnerability. And I think, personally, a lot of people are generally not good at communicating that they desire to be vulnerable. They just end up accidentally being vulnerable. And this is something that I feel like happens when you're not as good of a communicator, is that you end up revealing basically that this is the area where I'm hurting and I actually want to connect in this, but I'm not going to actually invite you. I'm just going to say, oh, look, my trauma. And then it's like, wait a minute.
There's some slip of the tongue and suddenly you're socially naked.
Right, exactly. And I think that Yuki is smart enough to realize that, oh, I just found something that very much bugs me about this guy, but I can put my finger on exactly what it is.
Right.
And then it's like, oh yeah, you know exactly why to put it exactly on that head there because it's yours, and that's where he reveals...
You have much more practice in this territory.
Right, exactly. And then he is extremely socially vulnerable or emotionally vulnerable, realizes it, and in some ways, Yuki, this is your strength, is you can actually utilize your pain and your depth of emotion and your conscientiousness to let people know that you haven't got your shit together, that you're figuring it out. And that was the best thing about his student council president speech, was he kind of did that. He's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to try and figure this out with you, but I'm going to work hard. I will work hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can trust me, even if not in my experience in the
earnestness.
Yeah, exactly, in the earnestness. Well said, yeah. And I think the fact that he opened up like that when socially he had no need to. The other guy absolutely did start it, right? But the fact that he did, I think that's what ended up winning the guy over. Because when Yuki calls him out on it, Yuki's right. He's harsh about it, right? But you know, this guy was definitely doing at least the initial prodding, even if maybe Yuki responded.
Just because you're correct doesn't mean you're right.
Just because you're correct doesn't mean you're right. And the fact that Yuki was able to accept that and be like, you know, you make a good point. That I was totally out of line, right? Without in any way demanding or reminding you also did some things you shouldn't have, right? That basically is like an equivalent of, and Yuki wasn't doing it for this purpose, but he ended up kind of taking the high road in such an extreme fashion that, of course this kid is then suddenly like, God, you're lucky. Because he's been, Manabe has had his problems. People have had no problem communicating how much he annoys them. It was happening constantly through this episode. That's probably one of the reasons why he bugs me so much as a person, is that he's so refusing to self-reflect, basically, right? But oh hey, no, that's his problem.
Oh, he's constantly self-reflecting. But that's the thing.
Right,
he just doesn't show it.
He doesn't show it, and he does not have the courage to face it. He's still running away, maybe like Yuki.
Oh, I see. I have a weirdly like I kind of resonate a little bit with Manabe. I feel like you don't really understand him as well here. I feel like there's an aspect of Manabe that actually is a darker side of me. So I feel like I have a much better handle on the deal here. It's that he is exactly like Yuki in a lot of ways, in that he's putting forth a persona.
Okay.
And Yuki got upset at the way in which their personas matched for a little bit, because he didn't like the idea of that he compared himself to him, and in that moment he's like, we're similar. So that made him lose his mind.
Okay.
This guy here primarily saw someone that is connected to Yuki, and he knows on some level that Yuki and Toru have some kind of like something or other. So in his concern, yes, that's why he was looking at Yuki. Like, that's why they showed that scene of Manabe looking at Kyo and Toru. He's like, oh, he's like, I had it wrong. Something changed, because the last time that we saw them basically was that, you know, Yuki and Toru were much basically closer. Now Toru is spending way more time with Kyo. Okay. So he's like, oh, I gotta check in with my bro and see like what's going on.
And that would explain why he then got so pissed at Yuki, because if you're being an asshole and someone says you're being an asshole and they punch you in the face, you're not going to be that mad about it. You might be, right?
Right.
But not nearly as mad as if you try and help and then they say you're being an asshole and punch you in the face. That's when you'll get really pissed, right?
Right.
And so the idea that that's what he was trying to do here, I totally get that. And then because of his own
idiocy.
His own idiocy, basically.
He can't communicate it well at all.
And because he's also not comfortable being vulnerable, he isn't even willing to acknowledge the fact that he noticed it and that he cares, and that's why he's bringing it up. And so instead, he does it from a realm of comedy, which is what he usually goes to.
He's trying to keep it lighthearted. He's not wanting to push beyond Yuki's boundaries.
Because because comedy is it's sort of the only tool that he sees as having at his disposal, and that's why he uses it all the time, even when it's not appropriate.
It's really sad, actually.
And it's very frustrating for some of the people around him. Right.
Yeah.
And so then he uses comedy, which is like the worst possible thing when you're trying to show that someone might be hurting about something, and then and
it's funny because
bring it up in a blasé, joking manner.
Well, right, but the funny thing is that this is showing also where he doesn't actually understand Yuki at all. Is that Yuki's not upset about that at all? Yuki actually responds immediately they're kind of sort of a boyfriend girlfriend item. They're kind of a thing. it doesn't rattle Yuki at all.
Right.
It rattles him when he starts doing something that he can then compare them
Exactly.
to.
It's not the environmental circumstances, it's how he ends up responding to the environmental circumstances. And he's gotten
We're still talking about Yuki, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And Yuki has gotten to a point where he isn't as he's not as jealous of Kyo. He doesn't have as much of a tendency of going to the Bakaneko and all that stuff, right?
Well, yeah, I think he's kind of letting it happen. He's like, I understand. This is what's making her happy, and
Right.
I want Toru to be happy. You know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this guy starts bringing it up more, and he's like, okay. Do you have to do that? Like
Oh, sure. I didn't really see it like that.
Oh, yeah?
I think it was more of the idea of just like, oh, do you get some kind of sick enjoyment out of this? And
Right.
that's the one judgment thing he's levying out against him, and that he's like, why do you seem to get pleasure from this? The pleasure thing is his translation of why is he making this comedic? Is he laughing at me?
Right.
Kind of thing. And that shows Yuki's own condescension and arrogance at times.
And right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because while there has amidst all of the comedy antics that Yuki and Kyo have shared in the show up till now.
Right.
And while we can laugh and be like, yes, Kyo's the hot-headed one,
right.
and Yuki calls him out on it. No, Yuki is absolutely being like condescending and even provocative with a lot of the things that he does.
He's the hot-headed one, actually. It's just that he keeps it all underneath the surface
Yeah.
and doesn't actually use it as a way to show how similar they are. How they're actually they should be just good friends.
And hence probably why Kyo would get on his nerves a lot.
Yeah.
And so now in this situation, someone else is kind of doing that. And so of course he calls them out on it, right? Because there's the frustration that we get with other people when they share our same problem, right? And then it's God, I hate it when I do that. So I hate it when I see someone else do it even more, right? But then there's the other one where it's the God, I used to do that, and I hated that I did that. But you know what? I figured that shit out. I worked on it. I got better. What excuse do you have for not having already done that?
And that's so arrogant. That's
it totally is.
That's the kind of thing where
everyone's at their own different journeys,
Right. It shows a lack of conscientiousness. It's the idea that at times, Yuki, your conscientiousness is actually your biggest strength, and at other times, it's your biggest fucking weak point.
Yeah.
Is that you actually forget that in order to be empathetic and conscientious, you have to give people patience, give them grace, be at the very least kind, and be genuinely kind. One of the things that's really, really rough about conscientious people is that they end up being, I would say, rather smart compared to
because it's a lot of observation.
It's a lot of observation. It's a lot of patience. It's a lot of self-reflecting. It's the idea that Yuki, at his best, is very much able to reflect on his own internal state and have a good vision of it. Now, if you're not in a healthy way, you can actually view yourself in completely desynchronized way and believe it and act and live in it, and you will be functioning, but you will really, really be a bit of an anachronism to people around you, because they'll look at you and be like, what's going on? Something is off about you. Right. It doesn't feel genuine. Yeah.
You really are lucky, Yuki, in specific ways, not in others for sure. For sure. But the fact that the people that Kyo is closest with at the school is basically just Toru and Uo, I feel like that maybe is because Kyo is only capable of really connecting with very specific people because their personalities can be conducive, right? You know, Toru because she's Toru, and then Uo because she's the other, like, brash, rough around the edges person at school that owns it, Right,
and to connect you two as people, Kyo and Yuki, you're both kind of scared of connection in a lot of ways.
Sure.
So you should understand from each other that the fact that you both have your own coping mechanisms to figure it out, and Kyo happens to be like writing Cloud fucking 9 right now, and that things with him and Toru are going really well. That's obviously why Uo and Hana are kind of like buddying up a little bit more with Kyo to be like, oh, we get what's going on. We're not stupid. We are her angels. We flank her. The devil on the left and the angel on the right. And they're both capable of dishing out holy justice.
And which is which? Who knows?
Who knows? Exactly.
No, Uo's the angel and Hana's the devil.
That's the thing. Who knows, right?
But who knows?
Some days,
yeah. Some days it changes.
Yeah.
But you know what this episode actually made me really, really wish for Yuki?
Oh, what's that?
A father figure.
Because but see, that's the thing. Ayame kind of has to be that for now because but he's the older brother that can actually see Yuki for who he is.
Right, but it's the Anakin Obi-Wan thing, right? You know, like it's not a father figure.
Right.
It's an older brother. And those can be very
Qui-Gon,
Yeah, exactly. And
Shigeru's not going to be that.
Shigure is sure as hell he's not that, right?
Well, yeah, so, there's no one then.
There's no one, and that's
nobody. Yeah.
And that makes Yuki's arc very compelling to see how he figures this out on his kind of on his own.
And that's kind of why I like that he doesn't have that, because there's a lot about Yuki that is coded a bit more feminine. So specifically the idea that he sounded like his mother here, like he sounded like Kakeru's mother, I feel like is very apt and understanding of the mangaka really gets their characters here, in that having Yuki sound kind of like a mother here feels really in tune with where Yuki's headspace is at in general.
Okay.
That he's basically having that kind of realization that he's like, oh, I'm going to move back from a lot of this like attraction of sorts to Toru because it was a part of the prince persona, which is not who I am.
Right.
So I'm going to be more of the...
I'm going to work on me so that way, if I end up re-engaging with those feelings, it can be from a place of strength and where it's truly him, not just the person who appreciates what Toru is doing for him and helping him change and all of that.
Yeah, but this is the other side of Yuki that is the internal, the stuff that's the persona that's not actually being put out for others but being put up for himself. The idea that this comparison is something that he does again as another layer of defense mechanism so that he doesn't have to really focus on or look at, or he can keep compartmentalized away all that trauma, because I feel like he's his own guardian at this point, which makes it to where he's like weirdly enough a cat in this case.
Totally.
Like, stay away from my little rat. It's in the dark, it's in the sewers here, and that's where it deserves to be because it's horrible, but you don't get to look at it or call it trash. That's only what I get to do.
And I almost feel like we might have commented on that in like way early in the show, that Yuki really did seem to have more of that cat type, like traditional cat type personality than Kyo. But then of course the traditional animal personalities don't necessarily apply with the show and the characters and all that. Yeah. But I would settle for any kind of parental figure, like it's whether mom or dad or whatever. I like because Kyo has Kazuma, and we have been able to see just how wonderful Kazuma has been for Kyo, right? And Yuki, I honestly he's doing a great job.
He's doing a great job, but I honestly think it's better that his problems are not as
maybe he's
not as obviously layered.
Well,
if that makes sense. Like obviously everyone's trauma is layered in this story, but the idea that for him the layers with which he needs to dig through aren't as like obvious to him that they're layers. So that's why
to Yuki or Kyo?
To Yuki. Okay. Basically that in this moment here he realized, oh shit, this guy must be right. I must be lucky. Damn it! Now I want to cry because is that actually what I've been missing?
Yeah. In getting so caught up with the comparison games, have I just been setting my stats to 0 in my in my head when it's actually like no, you have so many wonderful things that you either discredit or see them as basically not being the genuine you, even maybe
sure,
that then you're like, well, I don't, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the arc for Yuki now is that he has a little bit of an understanding of the prince persona and where it's useful and not useful.
Sure.
And he doesn't need to turn it on more than like 10% in order to have magnificent results with the other clubs.
Sure.
But the arc will be how he slowly transforms the entire student council. And that actually Manabe is going to be his best buddy in this regard. He's going to be his dog, his right-hand man. He's going to be the guy that actually utilizes the skills of the charisma and the persona, if you will, to then break through to other people. And then he'll be the temperance for Manabe and like, hey, whoa, my turn to step in. He's like, okay, yes.
And one of the things
Absolutely. My captain.
Right. I don't remember too much about the Power Rangers. But wasn't the red one the leader?
No.
Was the green one the leader?
No. It was either like
blue.
I want to say it was black.
Because I thought it was something where black wasn't the leader. They were like the cool other person that was like, oh yeah, I'm the badass. That's like,
I think you're right.
I
think you're right. Yeah.
If that's the case, then that's kind of interesting. That maybe also for his own kind of like, Chuny Power Rangers whole thing, right?
Sure.
Manabe might have, assuming that the red is the leader, right? And I could totally be wrong about that.
Now that you say that,
that he sets Yuki up to be in the position of, you're the leader, I'll do my own thing, but at the same time,
you're absolutely the one I'm going to be like following your orders.
Yeah. And the thing is that he wasn't it might take a while for him to truly get into that state, but we have definitely we saw the glimpses that could happen in the episode where he was introduced,
right?
And I think we see the start of that happening in this one, at the end of it, not in the earlier parts.
And we hinted some more stuff with Machi, though.
Yes, we
did. There
were
a couple things where he was giving his speech. She wasn't looking at you, Yuki, but they focused on her eyes, where she was like intently listening on every word that you said. So if this is your promise to them, you made your promise to yourself,
right?
Following through on both does not mean you need to be perfect at it, but it does mean commitment. It does mean time. It does mean patience with yourself to fail, get back up, and then keep going. Keep moving forward. The idea that you got this far with Manabe so quickly is a huge deal. In some ways, you got a little bit lucky in that he didn't just kick your seedlings, leave and never speak to you again, and just make it difficult for you for the student council, the rest of the thing there. The fact that he came back immediately, almost after they had their little tirade bit, and was like, hey, I messed up. I don't understand people. You're lucky. That bit there shows how much he needs your connection there, and that in some ways you will end up leading him. The fact that he already kind of sees you as that cool or that amazing as far as a leader.
And if anything, it's something where I'm curious to see how that will reconcile with the other part of him that almost seems like diametrically opposed to it, of the never being serious and constantly sleeping around and doing all that stuff, because the thing is that like one of his defining characteristics so far is that he talks a big talk but doesn't walk the walk, right? So I'm and given that the student council of the school and one of the characters on the student council is not the the main focus necessarily for Fruits Basket as a whole.
No, they kind of did it really quickly.
Right, like I would have
to let us know that it probably won't be in another episode.
Right, and I, if anything, I would have loved to see a bit more things of him taking like concrete ground, like showing him cleaning up the seedlings. Even if he was like, well, I don't want to do it now.
They might continue that literally into the next episode, though. I feel like it's more important that what they're kind of saying is that they're going to do this for every member of the student council.
Right.
This being done in one episode on a meta level felt to me that they're like, okay, 1 out of 4 complete.
Right. And even if
we're going to go to the other 3 now.
Right. And even if Machi is kind of like the main one,
the main boss,
they don't need to give as much focus to Kimi or to
I think they're going
Naohito.
I think they're going to give my prediction, combo. They're going to do the 2 of them together.
Sure. I could see that.
Or they'll literally give each of them 1 full episode.
Hey, if they do, great.
Yeah.
Like I think
Naohito is the one that gets the least.
He's the least on the priority.
He's the least on the priority. Yeah. I actually think Kimi has a very big potential aspect of this there, because she looked eerily like Toru.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
No, I know.
She was drawn to look
I straight up was
close to
wondering
Toru.
if this was like, and you saw some of my confusion in the
me too.
reaction.
Me too.
But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that this was someone that was either part of the club or something like that, that specifically was trying to make her hair look kind of like Toru.
Same.
Not enough to be copying.
Right.
Not enough to be copying. If you had like the loops and all of that stuff and whatnot, that'd be a bit much.
Yeah, but when she showed up, let me bring up the
she looked very similar to Toru. And now, yes, it could just be because it's the long brown hair and things like that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if this girl maybe has done a bit of a research.
Oh, I very much could see that there. There's a lot about her that's just like, oh, she's a pretty generic looking design in general. It's not that she really does look like Toru. It was just a thing where we were like, oh,
right,
this was a choice. Mm-hmm. The immersion was broken for a second, where we were like, hold on,
what's going on?
Why did the creator draw her to have just that slight bit of uncanny valley with you look a little bit like Toru? And I think it's setting up the idea that she's got actually like real intention. Like she really likes Yuki.
She's playing the game. She's not doing the fan club thing of standing from the sidelines, right?
She's going off meta.
Right. She's
hacking the meta as well.
Right, she's hacking the meta, and I think that was also showcased with how she handled the fan club.
Right.
In that, like, I know exactly how you think. I don't think like that, but I'm also going to, do my witty riposte, and destroy you guys in this conversation.
Because think about it. She's trying to be the princess. And what's perfect with that is that eventually Yuki's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm not a prince.
I'm not a prince. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she's going to be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, this ugh. Like,
because I would almost love it if she's like, good. I was using this stupid thing to try and see if I could pull you out of it and get it, your actual human side and find your emotions. And he'd be like, well, fuck you, trying to manipulate me like that.
You.
And she's like, well, fuck you, and then it's like,
no, I actually kind of like it.
And then I was like, is there some kind of thing there? Because I really don't like these kinds of characters when they're dead set on trying that. But the fact that she broke in that little bit in the student council where she went, and went quiet there, that was the big hint that
and I would say more so than even a big hint, it's something where with her character archetype, that feels like just the assumed thing that is the case, right? Once she's introduced, right? Like
good point. Yeah.
Like she very much feels like she's set up as if she's trying to fulfill the role of the romantic rival for Toru, right?
Yes.
And it's like I'm gonna do this, and I know the game, and I'm gonna be great at it, right?
Yeah.
And so she comes in and she starts doing all of this stuff.
Right.
Clearly, it's fake. To what degree is the question?
Degree? And I think it's so extremely fake that she's like the opposite of this.
Well, totally. But I wanted to applaud the show for being so upfront about it. Because since it's kind of so obvious, even if we need to see what kind of particular flavor she has with it, why beat around the bush?
The bush?
5 minutes after she's introduced, she's already decking someone right in front of Yuki, right? So it's like he has no misgivings about it, and quite frankly, she knows that he knows. She might not she might be like, I can kind of smooth it out. But if she was really trying to be hyper serious about this, she might only do that if he wasn't around. Right, exactly. But given that she did that there, I almost wonder if she's going for some other angle of, even if he gets a vibe, the fact that I'm able to play this part so well,
I'll spin it.
He won't care.
Oh, he won't care.
Maybe. And this is me going out on a bit of a limb here.
Yeah, I like this limb though.
But what if she was so in tune, she could see the personas and everything that he put up. And so she's like, cool, that's the game.
Persona master.
Right. That's the game you like to play. Awesome. I can join you in that game. Right. And then maybe we'll get to know the real each other,
Damn. If that's what she's trying to do, she would be a
that's some next level mind games,
5-head falcon coming in
4D chess,
out of left field with the I'm gonna swoop this guy's ass up so hard he isn't even gonna realize
It could also it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Sure.
It could just be a comedy bit and something to communicate to the audience what the situation is.
Yeah.
Given that her percentage of screen time in the compared to the show as a whole is going to be like a tiny little sliver, right?
Yeah.
But
she's limited in scope right now to the student council. She's not involved with
you gotta move quickly with the characters because otherwise nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At the very least, they're going to have a serious arc for the student council that will resolve probably in this season, and her character, moments will be encapsulated within that. The difference is that regardless of what their characters kind of encompass, Yuki encompasses the entire story in his own little portion. So he needs to basically take whatever he gains from this arc to the next stage of the story.
Exactly.
And there are characters that could end up being his allies in whatever that next stage is. And I actually feel like of all the ones that make the most sense to be it, Kimi and Kakeru seem to be the ones that I would want in his right and his left.
Sure.
They're the ones that have the strongest persona power. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
They also seem to be the ones that are the most all in on Yuki specifically. So that passion could be matured into something that is actually helpful.
Now Hito is a self-proclaimed rival, and
Hito
and Machi seems too reasonable. Like if anything, that's the vibe of her that seems the most at odds with everything else. Is that these other two characters? Yes, they're going to have their character growth. We saw some of it here, but they're also very much comedic characters, right?
Yes.
And we can laugh at Naohito getting all angry and stuff. But Machi, no, she's like 100% serious.
She's 100% serious, and you can tell that she is either seething under her breath with how frustrated she is about all this, or she is like, I will not murder them because I don't care about them.
Right. There's some kind of there's a lot going on with Machi.
Right, and it's just...
She doesn't bother with personas.
Repressed.
She keeps it repressed.
Yeah. So we'll see, hopefully, her outbursts.
Right.
Given that we know that she is capable of it.
Yeah.
And the last time it happened, it was a big deal, and it involved Kakeru.
Indeed.
So,
but
we'll get into that. But
last thing I want to say from the standpoint of Kimi, to showcase that she doesn't have a lot of screen time to work with, she was introduced after another character got their resolution for the show.
We don't know if he's fully resolved for the show. I would say he's mostly resolved. Kakeru, right?
No, not Kakeru. No.
Oh.
The in the previous episode, the teacher and
I see what you're saying.
And
Hattori.
Hattori, yeah.
So our great teacher, yeah.
Right, and while we might still see them in the show from here on out, right?
Oh yeah,
that was their potential show resolution
I get what
episode.
You're saying, yeah.
So it's
yeah.
But
all right, this is a return to the earlier parts of season 2
with school antics, and we love those.
Council arc and figure out where this leaves Yuki off.
Indeed.
Yeah. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and crazy discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.